Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Salman Qureshi. You're listening to the Expat Brat podcast. What's up? So here we are recording and wishing you guys are having an exciting day. I think as long as you're not one of those people stuck in a queue somewhere, you should be really happy with yourself and your life. Like, you got to thank God you're not one of those idiots. All right. And there are a couple of queues I'm referring to, okay? The particularly long ones. There's the one outside the Queen's, is it to see the coffin? Something like that. There's a line out there. And then there's the iPhone 14 line. Two long lines that, to me, are just meaningless and dumb. So if you're not in there, you're great. See, the iPhone 14 one I don't get anymore because you can order online. You might have to wait a day or two. Come on, man. We're at the 14th iPhone now, right? It's time to give this thing a rest. You don't have to, like, now you look like schmucks. Like, people, you got to know when something's turned into, like, mocking. Like, when something starts off as cool and you all want to do it, it's cool. It's right. Like, everyone wants to get in on it, and it goes on for a little bit. But iPhone 14, it's like you're trying to get people to do the fidget spin thing with you again, or the bottle tossing. You remember that, the bottle toss thing with a little bit of water in the bottle, and you flip it, and it lands on, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, I've never seen anything like that before, humanity!" Ah! And I think it's time. You just go. It's time to give this a rest. And the iPhone 14, I think, has reached that point. Don't get me wrong. I love Apple products. I am invested in the ecosystem of the Apple world. It starts slow, and then you just get sucked into it. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think maybe not for my bank account, but overall, it is good quality products, and I like it. And once you're with the iPhone and stuff, it's hard to go back. I love the camera on it. I've got the iPhone 13, and I gotta say, it's a great phone. I love it. Nothing wrong with it. I agree the price is too high and whatnot. It should be a bit lower, a lot lower, really, considering they source all their stuff from China. Every smartphone, right? China manufactures it. They get the minerals. Well, aren't there like little kids in Africa thrown into some kind of mines? Forget like working hours and rights. They're just like little children pulling out these minerals, and that builds the screens and the phone chips and everything for us, so that we in the better parts of the world can use these smartphones to get on social media and talk about how we want this world to be a better place. Oh, and then there's the Queen, of course, right? She's dead. King Charles has taken over, and apparently there's like a 12-hour line. David Beckham's in it, and they're just standing around for it. And I don't know why you have to stand there to pay your respect like that, especially for that. But my favorite point about it, I gotta say this before I move into my main topic. My favorite thing about it was that I heard people complaining. I was reading about it, about how people are complaining that some people are getting VIP treatment and getting to skip the lines and pay their respect to the queens earlier than the common folks. And if I have to explain that to you, the irony or the stupidity of that, then of someone like being upset about that's what I mean. Like, then go away and think about it. All right. Actually, I'll tell you why. It's the Queen. It's a monarchy. All right. They've set themselves up. They call themselves blue-blooded. All right. They've set themselves up to be considered more special than all of you. And you're standing in line to pay your respects to this form of rule over you. So it's stupid of you to complain about people being equal. You literally, oh man, what's up with humanity, right? Like, what's up? I labeled this, I titled this podcast, Walk Like an Egyptian, not to mock Egyptian. This is very cool. I've been thinking about my upbringing, and I just realized as a Pakistani and as an expat in the Gulf, Egyptians are a big part of my life, have always been, and Egypt intrigues me in so many ways. And I think Egypt not only has had a direct impact on my life, but actually is very much like Pakistan in a lot of ways. And I'll get into that in a second and explain that. But my relationship with Egyptians go back right from day one that I've gone into school and stuff. All right, so my um, a lot of my classmates were from Egypt. A lot of the teachers I had, particularly the ones who taught me Arabic and religious studies, Islamic studies in Saudi. Um, I'm making it sound more plural than it was. This is the Saudi in the 80s. By the way, very impressed by the Saudi marketing going on right now. They've opened up visas for people. The airlines. I've been seeing some of the ads they've been putting up, and they're really going for this tourism thing. And I gotta applaud them. I make a lot of jokes about my childhood there. And man, rightfully so, right? It was a big stereotype. And I've talked about this in a previous episode. So, but hats off to them. They're actually doing it. One of the reasons I was very skeptical at the beginning is because Saudi did have a habit of announcing these grand schemes and big gestures and whatnot, and then never following through on it. But it's the first time I've kind of sat back. I've been watching this and going, I'm kind of impressed. And again, great. If they can go down this path, great for them. But yeah, so even my principal was an Egyptian person, Mr. Kamal, and I recently got in touch with him through some school alumni kids and whatnot, and we connected, especially during the COVID times, because hey, what else did you have to do back then? But it was really cool because I got to talk about some old stories and find out that he's still alive. He's just moved back home from Saudi to Egypt and living this retired life. But he was really, really happy to hear messages coming in from old students. He probably won't recognize me because it was a busy school. It reminds me of this story. Yeah. This one time, me, a friend named Taha, and one more kid, Adil, we get sent off to the principal's office. Now, just as a background, my friend Taha, Indian kid, moved to the States very early on. And he was the naughty one, right? He was the instigator in our group. He'd be the one, let's do something crazy kind of guy. And I don't know what we had done this time to be sent off to the principal's office, but we follow him in. Daha's like, the dude. And our principal, Mr. Kamal, he turns to Daha and us, and he just goes, you guys, I expect you to be here, but you. And he's saying this as he turns to Daha, I'm so shocked that you are here. You're such a good kid, and you're such a good role model in the school. I'm very shocked that you're with these kids. And me and this other dude, a couple of other friends who were sent in because Taha caused this, were standing there in disbelief, thinking, what's going on here? So I don't know whether he mistook him for someone else or he just had a clean image in front of the principal and why we had bad images in front of him. I don't know what happened that day, but I still remember it as like a shocker. But great guy, our headmaster, and yeah, he was Egyptian, right? And so, like I said, so we're a lot of my one bad kind of experience was with a couple of Egyptian teachers was that they did believe in punishment, like the hard hitting type. Some of them would bring out the scale and stuff, and that kind of made me hate having to go into my Arabic or religion, Islamic study classes. And that's a little regret, So, yeah, it's a bit sad that happened. But I also had some really good teachers. There were a couple of good Egyptian Arabic teachers of mine as well, namely Mr. Ashraf. Really good, And it was nice to experience that. But here's where it gets interesting. All right, one of the biggest impacts, or one of the best things I got out of Egypt. I got to thank the Egyptians, all my Egyptian people in the world for it. Now, I was stuck in Jeddah, all right? This is pre-internet. This is pre-satellite dish. This is pre-cable, all right? So all I had access to on my TV, where and this is going old school with the aerial. You had to fit on the TV, and then you started hanging it outside your window with one of your uncles hanging half outside to make sure you got it, and hoping he doesn't fall off and die, but you get to the right angle so you're catching all the channels possible. That situation, all right? We're in that situation, and we get two channels that are based in Saudi Arabia. One of them was called Channel 1, which was Arabic programming, and Channel 2 was English programming, which aired a few things, heavily censored as well. And then, on good days, across from the Red Sea, the airwaves passed on Egyptian TV channels, all right? On very clear days, we'd receive two Egyptian channels into our set, and we could watch stuff on it. And it was interesting because every Eid holidays, they'd play Bollywood movies. For 3 days of Eid celebrations, they'd play a Bollywood movie or two Bollywood movies every single day, primarily of this Bollywood superstar called Amitabh Bachchan from the 80s and 90s. All right, so I grew up watching these movies and just being blessed that I had access to this. It was love. I realized Egyptians loved Indian movies, particularly Amitabh Bachchan. And so his movies were played, and I got to watch it. So it was like a whole thing that I associated with just Egypt, providing me Bollywood movies. We're as a Pakistani, it boggles me. That was like globalization at its best, right there at the start, at the dawn of the globalization. Salman Qureshi got to watch Bollywood movies through Egypt. And so I always had this affinity towards Egyptian channels because I was just like, they saved us, the Egyptian people. They saved me and my time and my Eid holidays. And that was interesting. I got to do that. That's always going to stick to my mind. And it's so easy to see so many things now. It just, it was joyful to have to celebrate seeing those things. Partly, I don't know why. It was also the excitement that brown people from the subcontinent were showing up on an Arab TV. And it was one of those good moments, right? Where we were like, there can be cross-border love. And we're the same skin tone, same kind of people. Which brings me to the next big point, which I think is that Egyptians. So my first idea of Egyptians did come from the song Walk Like an Egyptian, and not in the stereotypical way, but in the sense that it's the first time I had heard or became conscious of Egyptians, right? I mean, I had Egyptian school friends, but you hear a song like that, it hits you. Yes, what is Egypt? What is Egyptian? It makes you curious about it. And so that was my first like real thought process around Egypt, because it was this English song that I loved, sung by this beautiful woman. I always thought Egyptians were very cool, and I still do, right? So that kind of stuck with me for a while because of that song. And I know I have a few Egyptian friends get ticked off about it. And in fact, one of the guys I saw, he was just going on about like, some people really think we walk like that, and I don't know, it's just idiotic that's what became our symbol. But, it was good. It was nice. I think, you got to look at the positives as well. And it was, at that time, representation of any kind, even if what people might consider negative or stereotypical in this day and age, I appreciated back then. So, that's where we were starting off with. So I think, in that era, it was kind of cool to have that song, and it was fun. And so I kind of got exposed to that. And then I loved, like I've admitted in a few episodes earlier, that I did love reading encyclopedias. And one of the things that intrigued me a lot was mythology. And so I read up on the Roman, the Greek, and the Egyptian one. And, that aspect of it was really cool to read about their pyramids and all that. And so here's the thing, right? Like, I think Pakistan and Egypt, they currently are these states that are overpopulated and stuck in this military rule. They have so much shared history, like this Islamic revolution in the 70s and 80s, kind of being the leaders of their area in some ways, military-wise at least, and just the radicalization of the population. And so one of the things that I thought was cool, for example, was this Egyptian friend of my dad's. He told me about growing up in a private school in Cairo back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s. And he said, we played cricket. He knew cricket. He knew all the rules. He was talking to me about it. He said, I still watch it. And he said, in the private schools, we played it. So I guess that British effect stayed back, but because they didn't have as much of a impact on Egypt as they did in the subcontinent, maybe, cricket didn't last or be the big thing over there. And but he described Egypt and how it was liberal, and they, people were educated and they were open-minded, and how that changed and how now it's different. And I feel the similarities between Egypt and Pakistan are very similar that way. We share a very rich history of theater and arts, historical kind of similarities as well. Now, I know the Egyptian pyramids are famous, but the south of Pakistan, the province called Sindh, it has a lot of like old civilizations there. And had our governments taken care and promoted them, they would have been tourist sites, because they go thousands of years back. They're really interesting to go see. And unfortunately, we just didn't ever get promoted like that, or we didn't choose to do it ourselves as well. Maybe at some point, if they haven't been completely damaged by the floods that have happened recently, maybe, just maybe, we might be able to promote them properly now. So I'm rushing off over all these things and kind of going over like doing an overview, but that's how I feel it was, and then politics and the military and the setup of the governments and how they keep the military kind of just runs things from behind. All that is just eerily similar that it shocks me. There's a certain, I know other places have had dictatorship, but the way the military operates is so similar. They use religion, they use like patriotism, not anti-patriot, but patriotism to just hold power. It's so interesting. And if the Egyptians had certain fanatic religious groups trying to, take over, Pakistan has had the same problem for years and years and years now. It also, when I look at the population, it's so similar. You have this educated class, a lot of them very westernized, perhaps in a way, best way to describe it. Sometimes I hate saying that, but that's what it is. And they, and then you're kind of illiterate, I suppose. The lower income. How do I say this without sounding, just classist or something? You know what I mean? There's a there's a little bit like it's not to say uncivilized, but a bit more rough around the edges kind of population that we have, and we share that, right? Our guys are driving cabs. Their guys are running restaurants or shawarmas or whatever. And so there is this aspect. They're very crude on the street. Women don't feel safe anymore, like, back in the day. And everyone gets attacked for religion and stuff as well. So there's all that's very similar. And so I feel like the people are very similar. I feel like comedy is a big thing as well. As a comedian, that's what interests me as well. Now, Pakistan, I feel, actually has the people there have a great comedic sense. I think mostly because when things are so shit, you have to find a way to laugh about things, right? Otherwise you'll go crazy. And so we see the humor in a lot of things. And generally, we enjoy watching comedy. And our comedy was pretty good. Fun fact, a lot of Indian stand-up comics that I've met have referred old Pakistani, particularly this guy called Umar Sharif, not the famous Egyptian Umar Sharif. Aha, another similarity. Ooh, Umar Sharif was a stage actor, half stand-up comic kind of thing. He'd improvise during his plays, and a lot of the Indian comics, he's one of their idols or one of their role models when they got into comedy. I'm talking about a lot of the modern ones, and that was nice to hear. Interesting as well, right? So deep comedic tradition, which also I think comes out in Egypt as well. I know from what I understand a lot in the Arab world, Egyptians, the comedy is renowned and known, and people admire it, and that's where a lot of the Egyptian stuff, comedy, comes from, and that's very interesting. So it's just remarkable to me how much we're alike. And then back in the day, this is going to sound a little rude, but back in the day, you could see our women were very pretty, Egyptian women and Pakistani women. All right, I'm just saying it. Put it out there. Don't shoot the messenger, okay? I'm talking about 70s and 80s. And then they just, once they got married and hit 30 plus and had a couple of kids, bam, they let themselves go. It was like a thing, man. It was, maybe it happens everywhere, but particularly stood out amongst Pakistanis and Egyptians. Like, it would happen way too much and really bad, like really badly. So, I don't know what the deal with that is, but that was another thing I noticed that's very similar. Probably not true anymore. I'm again referring to the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. All right. So those kind of crazy stuff leaves me with a lot of love for Egyptians, a lot of the same frustrations for them. I feel bad. They've kind of gone through their youth. They've got a big youth population that wants great things in their part of the world. And just like Pakistanis, again, two very young populations, two countries that could do a lot. If our leaders, get their act together and sort things out, and also the people kind of just, chill out a little bit, maybe, huh? Shift back to how we used to be, fun, loving, and not getting all worked over small things with each other. Maybe, just maybe, that might sort things out. Okay, so that's my association and my thoughts on my fellow Egyptians. Well, not my fellow Egyptians, right? You wouldn't say that. My fellow human beings. All right, that's what it is. And yeah, just something I was thinking about. So, I hope this was interesting for you to listen to, whether you are from Pakistan or Egypt, because that would I'd love to hear your thoughts on, like, what whether you agree or disagree with that. I'd be interested to know, and I think we are, at the end of the day, people are more similar than we are different. Yeah. With that thought, I'm going to head off. I'm recording this a bit late at night. It's almost midnight, which means I'm about to turn into a pumpkin. And I got to get my beauty sleep. Okay. So I'm going to leave you there. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Show it some love. Share it. Leave a comment. It goes a long way to promoting the podcast. I'm going to head off. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. Or as a dog would say, woof.